I'm going to tell you all a secret. It's a complete miracle that I'm up on the stage today. Not because I'm short and like feeling tall for once, and not because I tripped on my way up. It's because just a little while ago, public speaking was a complete impossibility for me. Grade 9. For some of you in the audience, it's in your near future. For others, it's a distant memory. For me, it was only 2 years ago. But I don't remember much, other than my life and death battles with acne, of course. One other, perhaps more important thing I do remember, is that back in grade 9, I was an extremely shy and introverted person. If you were to go back and tell younger me that I would be up on the stage today, I would probably not take in a word you said. I had no ability whatsoever to speak to strangers, without at least a week's warning in advance. Honestly, even then, I think I would have struggled. So, what changed? The answer is simple, and it will set the stage for what I want to talk about today. The most important thing that changed for me, the transformation that altered my perspective on public speaking and life as a whole, was my development of soft skills. Soft skills can be briefly defined as non-technical, interpersonal skills that describe how you work and interact with others, often develop their experience rather than formal training. Things like communication, creativity, time management, and others of that sort. These characteristics are crucial to success in the modern world, whether you're at work, school, or just socializing. At social events, not having soft skills is just as much of a death sentence as not having a Wi-Fi password. Another perfect example is this very stage. Every speaker we listened to today followed a theme, yes, but they also spoke about many different things. One thing they all had in common, though, the greatest common factor for all you math enthusiasts out there, were their soft skills. We're also all amazingly dressed, for those of you who noticed. It's a fact of life. Soft skills affect each and every one of us. They affect us in our workplaces, our friendships, and our communities. For today, I'll be focusing first on how soft skills affect the workplace, as the majority of us here are soon to be entering the working world. For those of you here who aren't in high school, I still want you to bear with me for the next few minutes. Or, more specifically, I want you to bear with George. Now, George is less of a person and more of a story. George followed the typical pathway many in this room may be following as you speak. He worked hard in high school, secured his high average, and went to university with the inputs of Red Bull and coffee, and the outputs of blood, sweat, and tears. Now, on paper, George is an excellent student. Graduated with all the awards you could expect. I mean, he's an all-around high achiever. Let's pause on George's story for now, though, and talk about Michael. Michael worked hard in high school as well, and got to the same highly competitive program as George. However, this is where their paths changed. When Michael came onto campus, he immediately joined a ton of clubs, teams, societies, you name it. He made attempt to try as many things as possible, and he did, short of the anime club, but I'm pretty sure he just kept that secret. Unfortunately, life is all about trade-offs, and the time that Michael spent organizing campus events or hanging out with friends, that's time that he didn't spend studying. So, on paper, his marks were good enough, but certainly not as good as those of our friend George. To review, Michael and George graduate, and on paper, George comes across a lot better. His marks are higher than Michael's, he has more accolades, pretty much anything any employer could want. Speaking of employers, it's time for the next step. They both enter the working world, and by sheer coincidence, they both apply for the same job. Can you guess what happens next? George gets rejected. Imagine his surprise when he learns that Michael, someone he looked down upon his entire time in university, got the job. How? What was the difference between them? The skills that he carried. George had hard skills. Think of these as technical skills, like programming, or certifiable skills, like CPR. Michael had soft skills. Skills like confidence, empathy, communication skills, basic people skills. And that's what made a lasting impact on the YouTuber. However, if you recall, Michael wasn't the one that the school would say was a better candidate, was he? And this is precisely the issue. Those very soft skills, these essential parts of the modern world, are being skipped over in most schools in Canada. So how exactly should we try to fix this? It's simple. Community involvement. That involvement can be different things to different people, but interaction with others is a tried and tested method of developing soft skills. For high school students, a great example of this comes in the form of clubs. Clubs can take many forms, but whether you're in DECA, Ethics, or the K-pop club, what remains common between every club are their unique and tailored benefits. To expand more on what I mean by this, let me describe my own personal journey in my school's Model Humanities Club. Like I said before, I was an extremely shy person in grade 9. I'm not nearly as shy today, though it does make playing a hide and seek a lot harder. This completely changed for me, all because of a toy lightsaber. You heard me right, a lightsaber, as in the cool laser sword from Star Wars. I really wish the story started a different way, because whenever I tell it, people see it as even more vivid than usual. Basically, at my school's club fair, the club president at the time had a lightsaber on the desk. That's literally the only reason why I actually went up to him and asked him for the club. I'm mentioning this because it's important to understand how different my story could have been. This is not an intentional curriculum-based process. It was a decision that was born out of pure chance. More on that later. For now, though, as I go through my time in the club, I'll be breaking portions of that time into stages and describing them in that format. Each stage will have its own unique lessons and acquired skills, and I hope all of you can relate to at least one of them. With that said, let's look at the first stage. I like to call the stage the handshake stage. When you join a club like Model UN, a club based in debate and communication, you meet a lot of new people very quickly. That comes with a lot of handshakes. This stage also comes with one of the biggest benefits of joining a club, forming a stronger sense of identity. This benefit is pretty universal as well. It can be applied to all kinds of different organizations. For example, those of us looking to find acceptance in our own identity may join a cultural association. By uniting members around something they all have in common, those members immediately interact with each other, and as a result, learn more about themselves. Here's the cool part. This stage also comes with a bonus benefit, improving our communication skills. Person-to-person connection isn't easy, but stage 1 forces us to learn basics. How to talk to new people, how to empathize with others, how to work with those you don't want to, all skills that are incredibly necessary in the real world. Next, stage 2. This stage for me started when I applied for and became a junior executive at the club. It's when I started learning the basics about how collaboration and productivity work hand in hand on any meaningful endeavor. Particularly, being able to listen and sort of say your side to side. That's what I learned most from this stage. Interestingly enough, this is in direct contrast with ever-increasing trend in schools today, being too competitive. Essentially, the mentality that competition between peers is the best way to succeed, and specifically, a form of competition where the central belief is that for you to do better, someone else has to do worse. If you've ever heard someone say they won't help someone else out to ensure there's quote-unquote less competition, that's a perfect example of this phenomenon. It's a fairly common assumption those who isolate themselves and focus only on their marks will be more successful, or at least more academically successful, than those who don't. And this is exactly where I have to disagree. Collaboration is without a doubt an important part of success. Don't believe me? Let's go back to the year 2017, the year that fitness dinners were everywhere, and the year that Vine got shut down. It was also the year that the Nobel Prize in Physics was shared between 3 people. That might shock you, because when most people hear the Nobel Prize, they think of Einstein and his lone thought experiments, or Marie Curie and a radioactive study. You see, in the past, this is precisely how science and the human race was progressing. Scientists and mathematicians and other exceptionally talented people burned the midnight oil alone and worked as the essential theories. Naturally, they become some of the most well-known Nobel laureates. Today, however, the prize is usually shared to more than one person. It being awarded to multiple people in 2017 is not at all unusual or one-off to this day and age. There's a lot more to this story though, so let's look at the Nobel Foundation's website to find out what they had to say that year. LIGO, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, is a collaborative project with over 1,000 researchers from more than 20 countries. Pioneers Rainer Weiss and Kip Thorne, together with Barry C. Barish, the scientist and leader who brought the project to completion, ensured that nearly 4 decades of effort led to gravitational waves finally being observed. There's 2 parts of this quote I want to highlight. First, the beginning, where the important part to note is the emphasis on collaboration. As they say, this is a collaborative project with over 1,000 researchers. I mean, just think of the time zones. The second one I want to highlight, or more accurately, the person I want to highlight, is Barry C. Barish, the 3rd laureate of the year. The foundation describes him as a scientist, of course, but also as a leader. Leaders aren't born. Leaders don't become leaders by keeping close to the books. Leadership, despite that word's many implications, is undoubtedly a soft skill. What I'm trying to say is that the era of loner success is long gone. Collaboration is undoubtedly an integral contributor to progress. Leadership is essential to any organization that wishes to make consistent strides forward, especially in today's landscape of innovation. After all, if Nobel laureates have to collaborate with others, what makes you think you don't? Now, I know you might be thinking, this is true, but only for those at the top. After all, Nobel Prize winners aren't exactly worried about getting a good party in university. To address this, let's talk about one last soft skill, teamwork. It's often ignored by the very same competitive mentality from before, so I want to take some time to address what is fundamentally an incorrect viewpoint. A common saying about teamwork is that a rising tide lifts all ships. That's backed up by science. In fact, a Stanford study published in 2014 argued that teamwork is less a way of dividing up tasks and more of a mindset or psychological shift. The study went like this. 35 participants were split into groups of 3 to 5. Those participants were then given some time to meet each other and introduce themselves. Small talk, stuff like that. Now, while this was happening, the scientists behind the study were being a bit sneaky and secretly splitting each group into 2 teams, Team A and Team B. After their meet and greet, all members of each group were separated into individual rooms and given a logic puzzle to solve. After giving them some time to solve it on their own, all of them were given a handwritten clue on how to solve their puzzle. Literally, just a piece of paper with some untidy writing on it. But this is where the key to the study comes in. There is a difference in how the clue is presented to each team. Members of Team A were told that their clue had been written for them as part of the study by one of the scientists behind them. They never met those scientists, so it might as well have been generated by a computer and printed out. On the other hand, those in Team B were told that their clue had been written for them by one of the members they met earlier. There was a personal aspect to it, like phoning a friend in a game show. With these results in mind, do you have a clue as to what happened next? Members of Team A reported that they felt no connection to the other participants of the study or to the team members, which of course makes sense. But not only did those in Team B report that they felt like a team and a collective mission, they also worked on the puzzle for an average of 48% longer than the first group. You heard me right, 48% longer. Participants described feeling obligated to work hard on their puzzle so as to not disappoint the person they thought was their clue. They weren't just working at the same time or doing the same tasks in parallel. They were, without the knowledge, using the psychological benefits of teamwork for a better result. Now, we spent a lot of time today talking about soft skills in the abstract, about other people's stories. Now, I want to put the ball in your court with a simple question. What is your fatal flaw? What do you think is the number one thing between you and your goals? You and your ideal self? Think about your answer for a little bit. Would it surprise you that most people who answer this question don't talk about their latest math test or career? They talk about their emotional skills, how they affect others, the fundamental traits we carry when meeting other people. Answers like, my fatal flaw is that I can't manage my time well, or my fatal flaw is that in tough situations I lash out at people who are just trying to help, are fairly common. In short, when people respond to this question, they are, subconsciously, talking about their soft skills. I'll ask again, how do we get better? Schools today are making an effort to nurture these skills. Group projects, funds for clubs, student councils, these are efforts that are working, albeit slowly. Despite this, it's important to understand that soft skills are, by their very nature, difficult to teach in traditional environments. Oftentimes, it's about making the right choices at the individual level. And as any teacher can tell you, they can assign you homework and assign you extra credit, but they can't force you to do it. Soft skills are even more self-driven. Whether you're improving your relationships, improving as a student, or improving as an individual, there's always more to do, more to improve on. You might have noticed that in my Model U1 story, we only got to 2 stages. That's because I have no idea what stage comes next. I have no idea what they'll have in store for me, and that makes sense. There will always be more to do. The number one takeaway from today, the biggest thing I want everyone in this room to do from now on, is to always show up. What am I getting at? Well, think back to how I joined Model U1 in the first place. That lightsaber. Yeah, the lightsaber again. I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. There is a lightsaber in everyone's life. A trigger, that leads to a small decision that leads to a massive change. In my case, I mentioned before that this was not an intentional curriculum-based process. It was a decision born out of pure chance. This particular time, it worked out. But how many opportunities did I miss? In your life, were the times when you didn't attend a class, didn't submit an application, and above all, didn't show up when you could have? I can say for certain that there's times in my life when I should have done more. People generally understand this. It's why we spend a lot of time thinking about the past and what could have been. Here's an image of Tim Urban's that I'll be using to illustrate my final points. On the left, we can see what we just talked about. All of the pathways our lives could have taken. Highlighted in green is the pathway that we're actually on. But look on the right side. We never think about the right side, do we? The future, where we have just as many pathways open to us. We won't have a lot of lucky days, but the rare times we do, we don't want to miss them. That class you're not taking, that idea you're not pursuing, that conversation you're avoiding, they could open entirely new paths for you. Don't let these opportunities slip by, because opportunities are finite. What I hope is that all of us in this room today, all of us who are faced with unlimited pathways in our future, can choose one that will develop our soft skills. As I said earlier, life is all about trade-offs, but choosing to develop our humanity, our empathy, our relationships, our personality, our very sense of self. Is that not a trade-off we need to always make? Thank you.